Baldur's Gate 3. Seems like forever ago since this was announced and put back into early access. I never tried it back in early access, but it's now out, fully launched, so let's have a look at it running on the ROG Ally and see if we can't get it working all nice and pretty. Any testing that we do here on Just Nerdy Things is intended to give you as close to an out-of-the-box experience as we can provide. We don't play with the graphics memory unless it's required to launch the game, and we don't install any community-made modifications. We're just trying to take a look at, can the game run, can it run smoothly, and can we get it to a point where it's enjoyable without too much tinkering. Jumping straight in at 720p low settings on the 15 watt performance mode with balanced FSR on, we get a fairly inconsistent 40 to 60 FPS, more erring on the side of the 40s, so it doesn't bode too well for the 15 watt setting, but to be fair, between 40 and 60 is perfectly playable. If you want to save on some battery, you can have a great time here with this. I personally, with this being FSR 1, don't like quite how muddy it ends up looking. You lose a lot of detail on the low end of the FSR with this. So I probably wouldn't want to play it myself like this, but you could do really easily.
Better stay back. One strike could be lethal.
Now moving on up to quality FSR, same settings, performance mode, medium, 720p, we lose a lot of that blurriness, which is great, but conversely we also lose a lot of that frame rate, dropping into the mid-20s, occasionally into the 30s. Not really playable like this. Moving on to medium settings, performance mode with balanced FSR, where you're sitting between 30 and 40 for the most part, but it does dip into the 20s when there's quite a lot of particle effects happening. I'd probably say we've stretched the 15 watt performance mode as far as it can go with this one, but thankfully there is absolutely ways you can play this between 30 and 40 FPS, sometimes above that, in 15 watts. So if you love that 15 watts mode, you're covered. Shifting into turbo mode at low settings, 720p, we're sitting pretty comfortably above 50 FPS, dropping occasionally into the 40s when there's heavy particles going on, and sometimes seeing anywhere over 60 FPS and moving into 70s during conversations. Honestly, this is pretty cool. You don't get that blurry nastiness that comes with the usual FSR, and you're getting a really solid frame rate. This could be the sweet spot for 720p.
Your mind. You tried.
What was that? What's going on? I'm the hands of thing. Well,
As he.
There. A mind flayer. And it's hurt.
I'd rather it be hurt than me. Do be careful.
Moving into medium settings, I popped balanced FSR on and that muddiness returns. For me, it's just not worth the trade-off in taking it up to medium. Meanwhile, with high settings on turbo mode with quality FSR, we do start to dip into the 20s and the 30s at some points. The frame rate seems pretty inconsistent here and became especially bad when I hit any kind of combat where there was quite a lot happening on screen. Probably wouldn't go for this, to be honest. I'd say the sweet spot for 720p wise is turbo mode, low settings, maybe even no FSR if you don't like that mud.
Watch out!
now moving into 1080p low settings on the 15 watt performance mode, and we unfortunately can't keep a steady 30 FPS, dropping into the low 20s pretty frequently. This won't be going any further for the 15 watt. We'll have to move into turbo for any further changes. Testing the same low preset on turbo mode with no FSR yielded slightly better results, keeping us above 30 more often than not, but not as much as I would like, still dipping into the 20s, so it looks like for 1080p at least some kind of upscaling will be pretty much required. And so, switching on balanced FSR on the same 1080p low settings turbo mode sees a sizable increase in performance, taking us more often than not into the 50s and 60s, which is considerably better. A little bit of that FSR haze does return, but thankfully the increase in base resolution at 1080p has cleared a lot of that up. So this is definitely not a bad way to do it if you're looking at 1080p.
Wait, at least you made the effort.
Suddenly.
Did you feel that? I'm I tried already. I won't budge.
Cranking things up to medium settings, turbo mode, balanced FSR at 1080p, and yeah, performance does go down a little bit. Visual fidelity also good, but we do see frame rates between 40 and 50, so definitely a solid option.
Fresh water. There must be a settlement somewhere nearby.
Now, cranking the same settings up to quality FSR, it's clear that, like a greedy dwarf, I have dug too deep, and we now hit low to mid 30s, but sometimes dipping into the 20s. This is probably not where you want to play it. Also, please ignore that I managed to kill my character in this clip and failed to revive him 3 times. It's been a long time since I played a Baldur's Gate game.
Keep a blade close.
Never a dull moment.
Trust no one.
So, what's the best way to play it? Well, that depends entirely on your preference. If you like your 15 watt territory, you've got options. You've got pretty good options to get 40 to 50 FPS. Personally, if I was going 720p, I'd go with low settings, turbo mode, but with no FSR. But at 720p, it just gets too muddy. Going for 1080p, I'd be looking medium settings, turbo, balanced FSR. I think the high resolution cleans up the FSR muddiness nicely, and you still get to run in 1080p, which is just great. Battery life won't be good, but just plug it in. Anyway, I hope this helped you out. If it did, make sure to leave a like, maybe subscribe if you want to see more, and let me know in the comments if you've got any game requests or if you just want to chat.